I am Aaron Marcus, and this is going to be an incredible workshop today. It's teaching actors and models how to market themselves and get more work. And my first guest is John Lee Dumas. John is, first of all, welcome to the show. Um, Actually, it's a workshop. It's not really a show, but it kind of feels like a show because we have such interesting guests on. And John is one of these inspirational stories. Uh, he has just done so many things that it's just incredible. And actually, I'll give you a little bit of an introduction, and then we can get started. I mean, John has done everything from spending 8 years in the military, spending time in Iraq, and I always thank him very much for his service. He tested out a number of things for himself. He tried out different things, whether it was law school, whether it was involvement with insurance companies, and he was always searching for something that he felt passionate about. And then all of a sudden it hit. And he has this passion for doing podcasts. And he has, for those of you who have never listened to Entrepreneur on Fire, you've got to. It should be number one on your list. He has guests on every single day. For full disclosure, I was one of his guests. It was really so much fun. He just has an array of people who come onto the show and talk about many, many different aspects of being an entrepreneur. And for those of you who are actors and models, and you might be thinking, well, what does this have to do with being an entrepreneur? You guys are entrepreneurs. You guys are running a business here. And so without a doubt, you want to be listening and learning from his guests. So let me ask you this, and I'm going to be starting off here. For people who are just beginning in the acting and modeling world, just like with any other kind of business, what kind of recommendations, what kind of suggestions would you give people to actually learn how to properly get started with any kind of business they want to get involved with?
Well, Aaron, first off, thank you for that just flowering intro. I really appreciate it. That was an honor to have you on the show, and now it's great to be on your workshop here. I'm really excited to share with your listeners, with your audience, a couple of things that I've learned along my journey as an entrepreneur. And one of the major things, to answer your point directly, is building an audience. And that's one thing that you've been able to do throughout your journey as an entrepreneur, Aaron, and that's one thing that I've currently been doing and I'm continuing to do at Entrepreneur on Fire, is build an audience. And there's so many different ways to actually build an audience as an entrepreneur in any field that you need to find one that specifically does resonate with you. So my story was that podcasting really did resonate with me because I did really enjoy the audio form. I didn't really like writing, and so blogging was kind of out for me. And YouTube videos I knew were a great opportunity, but I was looking for more of something where people were going to be consuming content in cars or while they were on runs. So that resonated with me, and so I decided to become that subject matter expert in podcasting and build my audience that way. But that overall takeaway, Aaron, being that what resonates with you as an entrepreneur in your journey to build an audience, because once you have that audience, there are so many things that you can do. And with Entrepreneur on Fire, I'm doing things with my business right now that I never had any intention of doing when I first started, that are now open to me because I do have that audience, just like what you've been able to do through building an audience, having workshops like this, having online courses, and making a name for yourself, being interviewed on other podcasts, all comes from your audience that you've built that is now fueling the engine of your business.
And so for actors and models, who might not necessarily be thinking of putting together a podcast, but still, I'm sure there's some very similar things that you would tell people to do as far as how to get more recognition, how to get their name out there more. Like, for instance, even like with social media, are there some specific things that you do that you think would translate over for actors and models as well?
That really goes to the word that I like to use as platform, because as entrepreneurs, as people that are building their own name, their own place in specific industries, you really need to adopt that platform approach so you can be everywhere, because you never know where you're going to be found or where your people that are going to connect with you are going to find you. And so with Entrepreneur on Fire, when I launched it, I didn't just want to have a podcast, even though that's very powerful because you're going to be in iTunes and Stitcher Radio. You're going to be found potentially by millions of people on a monthly basis that are searching these directories for this type of audio content. There's also many people who will find you in other areas, like when you mentioned social media. We have an incredibly active Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Instagram is an amazing platform for us that you never would have thought at first. But one thing that we started doing was, hey, take a picture where you're listening to Entrepreneur on Fire. So we have pictures from the Golden Gate Bridge. We have pictures from, Istanbul. I mean, all over the world, people are taking pictures and resonating with that, and that's just continuing to build our brand, our knowledge, our audience by utilizing these platforms and really instituting that be everywhere approach. And it's not meant to be overwhelming. You don't need to be everywhere right away and to be great at all those different social platforms, but you definitely want to be growing and finding which ones your specific audience really resonate with. I know for me, Twitter and Facebook have developed into the two biggest places social media wise that my audience likes to interact with me. And I know there's other podcasters that have found that Google Plus and LinkedIn are more for them. And so, for you, Aaron, I don't know what your favorite social media platform is, but it could very well be something completely different. If you're a graphic artist, it's probably going to be Pinterest because it's a very visual. So it's just really good to know where your potential audience is going to be. Really try to serve that social media platform first and foremost and really get in there and have a great kind of focus on that, but then be looking to build out too so you can continue to increase your reach and truly be everywhere.
Well, certainly in our industry, it seems like in addition to all those places that you mentioned, which I agree with, LinkedIn also can be a really good place because there are lots of industry professionals who are, connected there, and so that could be a very, very powerful place. But even just kind of backing up one step, and once again, a lot of times actors and models aren't thinking themselves as businesses. So when you first got started, did you actually write up some kind of business plan? Did you have a step-by-step process with goals and how much you were planning on investing initially, and what kind of profits were you planning on seeing within certain time periods? Or was that part of your game plan when you started Entrepreneur on Fire?
Well, one thing that you did mention is that I did spend 8 years in the U.S. Army, so I kind of did learn from that part of my life a very disciplinary, a very strategic and rigorous accountability for myself, which did include a business plan, which did include projections. And I definitely try to keep it though to more of a 3 to 6 month time frame than like what I can kind of consider more old school, like the 3 to 5 year time frame. Because in this day and age, Aaron, things are changing so quickly. I didn't know where Entrepreneur was going to be in 6 months, so I think that building out a business plan 3 to 5 years would have been a little overkill because who knows what the landscape's going to look like in 3 to 5 years. Is podcasting still going to be here? Is there going to be something bigger, better, different? So I am a big believer in writing down your plans and writing down goals and writing down timelines, but keeping everything in a very tight area, and don't let it hold you down. Like, don't let the fact that you don't have these perfect projections of how much you think you're going to make in this certain venture that you're going into stop you from really taking action, which needs to be first and foremost. So spend some time on the business plan for yourself to get your mind straight, but in reality, you need to be taking action because in this day and age with things changing so fast, the landscape changing every single day, being agile is much more important than having a rigid business plan that you feel like you need to stick to.
So for a very specific example, so let's say somebody is just getting started, and one of their things to do list will have within 3 months, I want to have an agent. I want representation in 3 months. So they work on trying to figure out, okay, so this is how I'm going to go about getting an agent. These are the things I need to do to get this make this happen. And then all of a sudden, the 3 month time period hits. you don't have an agent. So what do you do when you don't reach the goals that you have projected?
You really need to take a step back at that point and examine why you failed to reach that goal. And something that kind of popped up in my mind is when you were talking about LinkedIn, which is a very powerful platform, Aaron, and it's a great place to be. But guess what? A lot of people know that's a great place to be. So you're kind of joining the herd mentality, so to speak. And it's really difficult to stand out when you're just doing what is working for everybody else. So I would say, hey, examine that. I mean, that's a great maybe way to go forward for the first 3 months. But if it's not working, examine the whys and then say, how can I step outside of this box? How can I be a little different? How can I, be that purple cow that Seth Godin wrote so eloquently about in that field of black and white cows, and really be that person that someone's going to actually sit up and take notice. And guess what? They might take notice and not like you, not resonate with you, and that's great, and that's great feedback to get, and at least that is feedback from just absolutely nothing, which in these very crowded industries that both you and I are in, Aaron, if we're not being niche, if we're not being thinking outside of the box, then we're not going to stand out. For instance, with Entrepreneur on Fire, I was getting into an industry that had plenty of podcasts that interviewed entrepreneurs and released it on iTunes and released it on different platforms. But I knew that I needed my purple cow, and so I thought outside of the box, and I said, there's a huge niche right now because nobody's doing it 7 days a week. We have weekly podcasters. We have, at the most, someone's doing it a couple days a week, but nobody's actually interviewing these inspiring entrepreneurs 7 days a week. And if I utilize that as my purple cow and think outside the box, then people are going to start thinking about it. Some people are going to hate it. They're going to think there's too many podcasts. And guess what? At least they see it to hate it. And some people are going to love it because they drive to work every day, because they work out 4 or 5 times a week, and they're looking for more content. They're looking for more inspiration from today's inspiring entrepreneurs. Like, I never would have had an opportunity to interview you, Aaron, if I was only doing a weekly podcast, because I would have been doing 50 a year. And I think you were interviewing like 247 or something. So I would have got to you, unfortunately, in like 3 years from now. And so that also sped my timeline up to get to talk to amazing people like yourself and expand my network and grow, all because I made that decision to do it differently and not to do what everybody else was doing. So really thinking outside the box in your industry can have a huge impact on your success or failure.
Well, it's apparent. I mean, you've got over 300,000 people a month who download the podcast. So what you have been doing has been incredibly successful. And one of the things that people mention to me all the time, and I'd be curious to hear your take on it. You're getting started, and it's something you really haven't had that much experience with. You're scared, you're nervous, you don't want to look foolish, you don't want to make horrible mistakes and embarrass yourself. How did you deal with those kinds of feelings, especially when you first got started?
It wasn't easy, Aaron. I'd like to take a second to talk about the imposter syndrome right now, because we all have it. Every single person that's listening to this call, myself, you, Aaron, President Obama, we have the imposter syndrome. Every single person does. It's like this innate feeling that we have, just like being scared of heights. I mean, you ask yourself, why me? Like, why now? Like, am I worthy of this? And it's these constant battle you have going on in your head. And again, it has that actual title, the imposter syndrome, because you feel like you're being an imposter. You feel like you're imposing. If you're an actor and you get accepted for a role, you're like, wow, thank God they didn't find out the real me, because they never would have given me this role. Thank God they found out, I tricked them. They know it's the fake me. Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, they all have this, this imposter syndrome. And so that's one thing that I dealt with so often when I was just about to launch Entrepreneur on Fire. I was like, who would want to talk to me? Or who would want to, what successful entrepreneur would want to talk to me? Like, why would they want to take 40 minutes, 35 minutes out of their day to share with me their journey? And then above and beyond that, who would want to listen to that? Like, who would want to listen to me interviewing other people and having them share their journey on my show? So I was having these two, really strong imposter syndrome things going on at once, which made it very difficult to launch. And actually, because of that, I kept delaying my launch by 15 days, by 30 days. And then finally, and this is a great takeaway, I think, for the listeners, talking about the value of mentorship. I had a mentor, and without my mentor, I may have never launched. But she was a successful podcaster. She knew what I was going through. She was working with me on that mindset. And finally, she just said, John, I will fire you if you don't launch this podcast. Like, yes, you're having the imposter syndrome. You're having fear. You have this huge fear of failure, and that's totally understandable. And that is just a natural progress of launching a business, of launching an entrepreneurial venture. But get it out there, do it. So my mentor allowed me to get over that hurdle by basically pushing me out the door, whereas I was like really scared to even open that door because of what was on the other side, which the imposter syndrome was telling me was just failure, rejection, and pain.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting when you talk about a mentor, because one of the things I wanted to talk with you about is, for the acting and modeling world, it's the exact same thing. I mean, you want to surround yourself and have access to industry professionals, who've experienced, anything that you are about to experience, somebody, who can help you, or people who can help you. How do you go about finding mentors?
So for me, when I had that aha moment that I am going to start a podcast that's going to interview today's most inspiring and successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week, I immediately went and said, who in my industry is doing it now successfully? Who is somebody that I look up to, that I would love to emulate, that I would love to learn from? And I came up with a list of names. I looked at that list of names, and it was, again, basically by just going to my industry, which was podcasting, seeing those industry leaders in that area, and then really kind of deciding which one of these mentors was really the best fit for me in the direction that I was looking to go. And I narrowed down my list, and I started reaching out to these people. And it wasn't just like, hey, will you give me some advice? Will you mentor me, XYZ? Like, I'm really looking for this kind of stuff. It was, it was a very focused, it was a very really niched email that was short, that just said, Jamie, this is John Lee Dumas. This is the concept I'm looking to create. This is what I want to do. I look up to you for what you've done in the industry for numerous reasons. Like, I know your time is valuable. I know you do take on mentors, because on their website they have coaching and mentorship available. And I know it's not free, and I'm willing to invest in myself. Would you consider me to be a mentee? And I got that was my number one choice. This woman, Jamie Tardy of The Eventual Millionaire, which is a very successful podcast that just interviews millionaires, and she's been doing it for over 3+ years now. And she did respond to me, and she said, John, I love the fact you said that you're willing to invest in yourself. That obviously proves that you're very serious about that. And obviously, yes, my time is valuable. I have a lot of people reaching out to me with questions, concerns, mentorship requests. But let's meet. And this is another reason why I did choose her, because I lived within 45 minutes of her, which was powerful. So we met for coffee. I shared with her everything and of what I was looking to do, and the fact that I really was going to be a great mentee, not only by fulfilling that financial component, but also by fulfilling the emotional component that she was going to place upon me to really help that mindset shift. So that was my first mentor I ever had in my life, and it was at the age of 32. So it was really, looking back on it, I wish I had got into the mentorship thing much earlier. I'll probably never not have a mentor now for the rest of my life, because I have such a strong believer in that relationship. And I now mentor people, but I'll never not still have a mentor, because then if you are actually mentoring people and you don't have a mentor, like you're in my opinion, like you're kind of being stationary. You're not drawing them up with you as you can continue to raise your own bar as an entrepreneur, as an actor, whatever field that you're in. So, Aaron, mentorship is so important. It's what got me over my mindset issues, my fear of failure, and it's something that I will always want to do for others. I'll always want to mentor others, just like I'll always want a mentor for myself.
And it's such a great story, John. And I know that, I mean, like, I get tons and tons and tons of emails daily. People asking quick questions, and maybe from a business point of view, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but from a personal point of view, I always, get back in touch with people, and I'll give them give them an answer. But one thing that I do find is that I might be able to answer somebody's question, and the answer, I think will be accurate. But in order for somebody to really be able to utilize that information, it takes a lot more than, a couple of sentence response. And like when you were talking about being a mentor, I mean, sometimes you have to really sit down and, spend an hour, spend a couple of hours, and really go into much more detail. And so I really like the way that you went about saying, look, I'm not, looking for a freebie here, because you can't possibly grow from just getting an answer here or an answer there. You have to really, like you said, invest in yourself. But one of the things that you had mentioned that also it really fascinated me, when you had said, so here you are, you have absolutely no experience in doing podcasts, and here you're about to start inviting some of the biggest names in the entrepreneurial industry on your show. Why did they come on your show? I mean, no offense to you, but for somebody who doesn't, when you first started, you don't have an audience, you don't have a big name. What brought them onto your show?
It's a great question, Aaron. And just to really reiterate your point, I had no audience. I had no online presence prior to jumping into the online world as a podcaster. I was literally in the U.S. Army. I was in corporate finance. I was in commercial real estate. I didn't even have a Twitter account. Like, I did not have any online presence at all when I first launched Entrepreneur on Fire. So there was no reason for people to come on my show at first. There really wasn't. But this is what I did. When I first decided that I was going to become a podcaster, again, not to drive this point home too many times, but it's so critical in my story, I reached out, I got a mentor. My mentor, Jamie Tardy, said, John, you need to start by going to conferences in your industry. And in fact, there's one next week that I'm speaking at. If you come, I'll introduce you to some people in the industry that will really be powerful to know. So I went to this conference. It was in New York City back in June of 2012. And sure enough, Jamie was speaking. She was on stage. She was keynoting. She did a great job. Afterwards, at the speaker's dinner, she introduced me to some really incredible other speakers who were at that conference. And I had conversations with these people, and I told them my dream to launch this podcast, and I was really working towards that, but I was still a couple months away. And they saw that I was genuine. They saw that I was passionate about it, and they gave me verbal yeses at that conference face to face, because I had taken the time to come and watch them speak and then to engage with them. I got my first couple yeses there, Aaron, from really big people in my industry, because this is at a really high level conference called Blog World in New York City. And so I was able to go back then to my little studio in Maine and spend what I call the summer of fire, just really contacting other people to be interviewed. But now I had that social proof of saying X, Y, and Z are on the lineup for Entrepreneur on Fire, which launches in 2 months. Will you join us for this big launch? And so now it's not just a guy like just saying, hey, I'm starting a podcast. It's a guy with verbal yeses from people that these other guests that I'm reaching out to know, like, and trust. So I got over 40 yeses from that summer just because of those 3 or 4 people that said yes to me at that conference. Their names alone were enough to say, well, if X, Y, and Z are doing it, then it's probably worth 25 to 30 minutes of my time to jump on a quick Skype call and share my journey as well. And plus, I don't mind talking about myself. I mean, that's kind of what I do as an online entrepreneur. And, these were speakers at conference. So, I mean, it was not that hard of a sell overall, which was...
And it's so interesting, because so many times I've heard people say, oh, that person, they got that role. They were just so lucky. They just happened to be in the right place at the right time. But I personally, I don't really believe in luck. I believe that you make your own luck. And so the fact that you initially found yourself a mentor, that you paid to go to a conference, that allowed you to make the contacts with people that helped you begin to set it up. And that's how things really got started. So even though, it just so happens that some of these important people were there and you were introduced to them, yeah, all those things did happen. Back and kind of waiting and, hoping that things would take place. And also on those very similar lines, once again, actors will tell me, they want to put a film together and they're trying to find, funding, and they want to, get investors, involved in their project, and they have no idea how to go about doing that. For someone like you, and once again, I mean, you did all of this stuff on your own. You created this incredible industry. How in the world, especially when you first got started, how did you bring in sponsors? I mean, you've got great sponsors on your podcast. How did you go about finding people to, essentially invest in you?
So I knew, and this is really going back, Aaron, to what we first talked about today, and that was audience. I knew that if I was able to create a good enough podcast, high enough quality that attracted the right people and enough people, that audience would be grown at a pretty rapid rate. And then once that audience is grown, there are so many options that you have. And for me, the first 4 or 5 months was just that building of an audience. It was launching in September of 2012 with no audience, with no listeners, with just 40 interviews that were going to be released over the next 40 days. And then moving forward and kind of building momentum up, because every single time an interview went live, I would email that guest and they would share that with their audience. So my audience would grow as it was being exposed to more and more audiences, and just this snowball effect. And then it rose to the top of the rankings in iTunes Business Podcasts, and that just happened, and that just caused a lot of iTunes organic traffic. And then I was asked to speak at a conference because of the success Entrepreneur on Fire was having, and that brought more legitimacy. And so now when I'm reaching out to people, I'm saying I've had X, Y, and Z on the show. And I have over 100,000 unique downloads every single month. Then I was able to reach out to the really high level people in my industry, like Tim Ferriss, like Seth Godin, and get them on the show. And then once you have those names, you're able to continue going from strength to strength. Time Magazine featured Entrepreneur on Fire in an article, and then Inc. featured Entrepreneur on Fire. So every one of these things, Aaron, I was taking and I was adding to that little email that I was sending out to potential guests, that just made it more and more easy and more obvious that, hey, this is worth 25 minutes. This guy's been featured in Time Magazine. He's now generating over 450,000 unique downloads per month as of this month. It's insane that you can just continue to kind of build this as you're growing your foundation. And to your point about sponsors, they found me. I wasn't willing to start my show with sponsors because I knew I wasn't going to be bringing in nearly enough revenue from those sponsors to justify the dilution of the podcast by bringing on sponsors, kind of ads, so to speak. But after 5 months, the sponsors started seeking me out, and that put me in this incredibly powerful position. So instead of me coming kind of hat in hand saying, will you sponsor my show, and then try to sell them on it, they came to me already sold, and basically it just came down to a numbers game after that. And so then we came up with those right numbers, Aaron. Then I decided to bring on the right sponsors, the ones that you've heard, like Audible, like LegalZoom, like Squarespace, Carbonite, GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, what we're speaking on right now, that are great companies and products and services for entrepreneurs. So when I reached that point where it made sense that I was commanding enough money to have sponsors for the show, they came to me. But believe me, Aaron, at that point, I then turned around and did exactly what I was just talking about with Social Proof, with guests. And then I started reaching out to other sponsors that I saw in the industry were sponsoring podcasts and saying, hey, I have GoToMeeting, I have 99 Designs, I have Audible sponsoring my podcast. They're sponsoring because it's fitting a great niche. Would you be interested in sponsoring Entrepreneur on Fire as well? Because I already had that social proof. So it's all about that snowball effect and kind of continuing to go down the hill. And we're very transparent here at Entrepreneur on Fire, Aaron. We release an income report every single month that details our wins, our losses, our successes, our failures. And I'm really open to being 100% transparent, and just to show you the power of building an audience. With the audience that we have right now at Entrepreneur on Fire, we generate over $36,000 every single month in sponsorship revenue alone, and that's stuff that's locked in for months in advance. So in October, November, December, we've already sold out 100% of our sponsorship inventory at that dollar amount. So you are talking real money when you're talking about building a real audience, which is kind of taking it full circle here, because that's what I really think is so important when you're getting into this game. How can you build a massive audience? And when you've done that, and Aaron's a great example of someone who's done that in the acting industry. Look at the different opportunities that come from that. You get, because Aaron's built his audience, now he's a guest on my podcast that generates over 450,000 unique downloads a month, and now he's exposed to this massive audience that never would have heard of him before. And then when the interview goes live, and I share that with him, and then he shares it with his audience, I'm exposed to an audience I never would have been exposed to before. And Aaron, I know that you got emails from Entrepreneur Fire guests, because I got them as well, saying how much they resonated with your podcast, and it's just this great momentum. You keep going.
Well, thank you. And it was so much fun being on the show. And I know you've got some time constraints, and I did promise I was going to get you out right around now. Just for the very last thing, hey, for people who are really interested in acting and modeling, and you're perhaps even thinking about a podcast, just so that you all know, John also offers tutoring sessions. He's got, you wrote a book teaching people how to put together a podcast. So without a doubt, you guys want to check out Entrepreneur on Fire. It's just a great place to get information. And John, really, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you're at a conference right now. And so anyhow, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It was really enjoyable. Thank you for having me on, Aaron.
Hey, well, first of all, Don, this is Don DePrima, and really so fortunate to have Don here. We've had an opportunity to meet in person a number of times, and Don's a really interesting guy. This guy has gone from being you're a pilot, you're a captain, correct?
I was an airline captain. Well, you might say my first career, my first career I was an aeronautical engineer. My second career I was with the airlines. I was an airline captain. I flew for Eastern and Pan Am, and I was director of training.
And then all of a sudden, now Don has gone in and you've created 800 Casting. And
That's correct.
For anybody who is not familiar with 800 Casting, well, first of all, you will be by the end of this session, and you definitely want to go to 800casting.com to learn more about how this can help you tremendously as both an actor and a model. So I guess the very first thing I just wanted to ask is, like, how and why did you decide to create 800 Casting?
Well, Aaron, my wife was a casting director for 35 years, and she was principally down in Florida, but did a lot of casting throughout the nation, and she even did some internationally. And it was my honeydew always to be the helper, and I didn't much like it. I knew about computers a little bit. I certainly knew about the cameras, and so I always got hooked into helping her out. And the more I did it, the more I thought there was a need for something that would help the entire industry. So that's how the birth came around.
And so with 800 Casting, just for people who might not be familiar with it, and by the way, it's international, correct?
It's international, right?
So basically, and just for full disclosure, I pay to be on 800 Casting because I find it to be helpful to me. And also, some of the agents that I work with want me to be on 800 Casting, but I'm going to get into that part of it a little bit later. Would you just explain exactly how 800 Casting works and how can it be helpful for people in the industry?
It's a large interface. It's never been done before. What it basically does is it provides an online portfolio for the talent. Now, it's not mandatory that the talent join, but many, many agents and agency professionals use the software. When we initially started out with the software several years back, I just built a talent database because, to be honest with you, I was exposed to Barbara's castings, and Barbara did a lot of work. She's done over 10,000 jobs. So
and Barbara's your wife, who's
my wife, Barbara DePrima Casting. And while I didn't like the industry much, I saw a lot of people being ripped off, taken advantage of. And I thought, well, why don't we just put something that's really honest and creative out there that'll give these talent an opportunity to have a presence online. And this all came about with the internet and, able to communicate back and forth. This was long before, streaming video like we have now. I mean, when I really started dealing with this business was in the early 90s, and people laughed at me because I was doing the video auditions and transmitting them from Miami to New York to clients, and they were selecting their selects and booking talent without ever even having to come on a callback. And it was a very rare situation because the internet was in its infancy. This is when the founders were just starting. The Bill Gates and the Steve Jobs were young kids. We all were. And, you're talking about back in the early 90s. And as it grew and it came into where people started to use email and people actually started to buy computers, there was a need for these. And there are very reputable competitors out there that do a great job, but there had to be something for the average common person who could have an online presence. And in this electronic age of online information and casting, every actor, it doesn't make any difference, entrepreneur, you must have some kind of an online presence. It doesn't make any difference whether you're a part-time model or a seasoned professional actor. If you don't have an online presence, you're just not using your marketing tools correctly. And it's just available. For example, I'm in Atlanta at this moment. I drove my wife down here. I live up in the Carolinas. And I drove my wife down here. I'm in Creative Studios in Atlanta right now. And she is doing an audition in the back. Now, that audition was done. The producer is out of New York. The director is out of LA. And the advertising company is out of, where are they out of? Chicago. And we put together through 800 Casting a total online scenario all the way down the line, all videos, just like you're seeing right now. What Barbara would do is she'd call the agents would submit the talent, and the talent would get an audition invitation, and they'd sit there and do an invitation just like we're doing now. It takes no more than their cell phone or a tablet or a regular computer or laptop, and they just do a little film and video, and they pre-audition, and then the clients do the callbacks. In some cases, and it happens more than once, clients book directly off the internet. They see the talent and they go into it. But what we do is we provide a lot for a talent for a minimum amount. In other words, for $39.95, and it's not mandatory that they join, but $39.95 a year, that's 10 images, 10 reels, 10 videos, 10 voiceovers, a full editable resume, and the talent are seeked and searched and reviewed by reputable clients every day. Now, let's face it, this is a tight scenario with this production industry. You may have a client who's Burger King, will say, and he needs to have a couple of kids and a mother and a father. And Burger King will spend millions of dollars putting an advertising together. And then they will go out and they will look for that mother, that's one, that father, that's one, and one boy and one girl. And that's 4 people in total. And in today, it's very competitive. You may have as many as, literally, I'm not trying to over-exaggerate it, you'll have hundreds or you may have 1,000 fathers or that role model, in other words, somebody between 30 and 35 years of age, trying to apply for that one job. And the clients have a big job because they've got to find the right person, and they're being paid big bucks to make sure that the right person represents that client, or excuse me, not that client, but that product, Burger King. So they don't want to make a mistake, so they really search, and they have to have the means. So what they do is they go to 800 Casting, they log on, they peruse the talent base, and they may do a search for women between the ages of, let's say, 25 and 30, and men between 28 and 32, your average family. And they'll bring up thousands and thousands and thousands, and they'll look at them really quickly, and they'll take a review of what they want, and then they'll make their selects. And there they can click on, they can look at their additional pictures, they can look at their reels, they can look at what they've done. And if they like them, they'll call the agent. And the agent will get a request to have them do some type of a online remote audition, basically like we're doing, or submit some photos online. It's all done through the interface. The interface is huge. I mean, it's never been undertaken before. It has 800 Casting, which is for the client, for the talent rather. It has TOS 800, which is the talent agency software used by hundreds of agents. It'll have the 800 client, which is used by literally, well, it's now over 1,000 in the United States clients. Those are directors, producers that use that. And then you've got 800 casting, which is used by casting directors internationally and the United States. Then you have 800 modeling. It all interfaces into one beautiful package that the clients can access, or the agents or anybody can access, and review and peruse talent. And that's what it's all about. It's about exposure.
And so one of the things that you had mentioned I thought that was interesting when you were talking about that talent can upload videos, they're an acting reel or a demo reel. You don't charge any extra fees for that, do you?
No, unlike the others, which do. Our fee is one thing. We charge $39.95. That's it. You get all the advantages. You get to use all the streaming video. You get unlimited amount of time on the internet. And it doesn't have to be within the 800 casting network. If you see something, for example, if you saw something on Craigslist and you wanted to submit yourself for Craigslist, you can literally do an audition just like we're doing now. You can submit reels, you can submit images, you can do it and submit it in real time directly over the internet plus your profile. There's no additional charge for that.
And actually, and something you just mentioned, when you're talking about other, and once again, I don't want to mention names of other places, but there are some companies that are more legitimate than others in the industry, and certainly one of the concerns that people, actors and models have, are these auditions, are these go-sees, are these projects legitimate, or is there something else going on? So what a lot of people might not know is that actually, for anybody who is using your service, any talent, you can actually put in your criteria and you can actually have things sent to you, correct, about different projects?
Exactly. It's built into the software. For instance, if you are an active member of 800 Casting, you're going to get the video, not the videos, you're going to get the breakdowns that are put onto the system pertinent to your description. In other words, your gender, your ethnicity, your age range, and your union. If you're a SAG member, you're only going to get SAG commercials unless you opt in to see the non-union. But you always have available, you can always go in and see more. There's two columns. It has one that you're, I can't remember exactly what it's labeled, but there's two headers. One is preferences for you, and then the whole, enchilada. In other words, you're going to be able to see under your screen exactly what's available for your gender, your ethnicity, and your age range.
And also your geographical location as well.
Correct.
Which is also it's a key thing because unless you are getting information about projects that are happening within your reach, if you're living in Miami, getting information about auditions in Seattle, Washington, probably aren't going to be all that helpful to you unless by chance they are willing to, book you by, looking at you online, which, like you said, Don, I mean, I've experienced that sometimes that does happen, but depending on the project, depending on, who is producing and things like that, quite often they actually need to see you. So that's why you really want to focus in on areas that you can, really get to. So, I mean, that's one of the other advantages that you will actually be sent notices of projects that fit your category that are right for you. So then the other question is, how do you know that these projects are legitimate?
Well, on our network, these people are qualified. In other words, when they go to 800casting.com, and at the bottom you can select to register as a talent, you can select to register as an agent or a manager, you can select to register as an industry professional. If you register as an industry professional, we're going to do our best to check you out. I mean, we're going to find out what you've done in the past. Do you have an office? Do you have a business? I mean, who have you worked with? We look you over. If in fact you put a breakdown out, we're going to review that. If, as a client, if you put a breakdown out, our staff or somebody in the office is going to review that breakdown and make sure that it has the correct information in it. Or we're going to call the client and say, hey, what are you doing here? You can't have this saying what you're saying here, it just doesn't make sense, let's revise it. And we'll submit it out to the network. And when the networks go out, so that's what it is. Then what happens, it happens with any of the big ones. I mean, it happens not just with us, but with a couple of the other majors. Your breakdown gets picked up and copied. And then it goes over to, I just had this happen, as a matter of fact, this one that we're doing right now, Barbara's out there in the studio with the clients right now going over. She put out a breakdown through the network, and of course, somebody who has already registered as an 800 casting member got a copy of the breakdown.
Excuse me, Don. Don, I just want to jump in for 1 second. Would you explain exactly what the breakdown means?
Breakdown is the term that's used by the clients, the industry professionals, to submit a project. And it's just a term breakdown. What it does is it gives all the details of where something is being shot, how, what they want for the talent that are going to be in there, the roles that are going to be employed, and the, just different, the shoot dates, the callback dates. That's the breakdown, as opposed to a project. A project is something that is individually done in-house. In other words, an agent builds a project based on certain criteria. A casting director builds a breakdown, which is also a project, but when they spit out the word breakdown, they're submitting it out to the agents to produce their talent, return their talent in so they can review those talent. So the only difference is a project is, it's kind of a general, generic term. Breakdown is a little bit more specific. This is how we're breaking down this project, and we need information back accordingly.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. And there are lots of agents who want their talent to be a part of 800 casting as well.
Well, it's simple. We built a software system for an agency that runs their entire agency. It's got accounting. It has all the advantages that all the requirements necessary to run an agent are built into the software, and literally these agents are getting it for free. They're running in there, they're seeing this kind of software, and we upload all of their talent. When an agent comes along and wants to be on the system, we provide them with the software. Well, what they do is they provide all of their talent, that we get a picture of each talent, and that'll have a first and last name. We will upload all the information based on what that agency has, and we'll put those in for free. And they sit there, and those talent are now available to the agent to use. In the days of old, you went into an agent, you gave them a headshot, here it is, they took your name, and they took maybe your age range, and they filed it in a book, and when they need you, they opened up the book and they looked at it. Well, this is all a piece of software. It's much more advanced than that. So the talent get uploaded for free, and the talent can register with that agent at any time for free. Whether or not they want to join the network and become a part of 800 casting, if they want to spend the $39.95, they're going to get exposure. But until they become an active member and spend the $39.95, they're not viewable by the clients. They're viewable by the agent. They may be submitted by the agent. The agent can do whatever they want to with those talent, whether they're active or not. But until they're active, they don't actually become visible to the client network themselves. In other words, if a client logs in and does a search for, whatever they're searching for, and they query the database, an inactive talent will not appear. Only the active talent will appear.
Got it. And so basically what this does for the agent, besides having an incredibly sophisticated system, the agent doesn't have to build their own website. They don't have to maintain their website. And also they don't have to have the mechanisms involved so that when producers or casting directors or photographers are doing searches, they don't have to have that kind of programming in their website as well that will allow people to quickly do searches. So it's a no-brainer for an agency to want to use a product like 800 Casting.
Well, I can tell you that there's, I don't know exactly how many agents are on the system, but worldwide, I guess it's 450, something like that, 500, I don't know where it is. Out of those, we find in a lot of feedback that it has helped them immensely. They're booking more. They're positioning. They're able to have less staff. Whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things that we hear positive about it. But one thing for sure is they book talent, and that is because they're being exposed. and the software is incredibly powerful for them as an agent, as well as the talent.
And so if somebody does not have an agent, does that still allow them to sign up and join 800 Casting, or do they have to be connected with an agent?
No, agency talent are uploaded automatically into free, because it's just as a matter of fact, if we went to you and you're an agent and you said, gee whiz, I got all these books over here with all my talent, if I use your system, I got a lot of work to do. Well, we do the work for them, so we upload. As an unrepresented person or a real person, and you're not represented by an agent, of course you can join, and you are now contacted directly by the client themselves. In other words, if the client wants additional information on you, instead of going to the agent first, which is the requirement of people using the software, they were going to call the talent directly. Now, the talent have an option there of having their email and or their phone listed for contact. Now, the other advantage is that the agents are all the time seeking new talent. I mean, there are agents, and we've got agents on the system, Wilhelmina, whatever. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. That are large, that scout talent all over the place, and they have the ability as an agent to look for unrepresented talent. They can't see any other agent's talent. They can't look and see Carolina talent, for instance, or JTA's talent. They can't see anybody else. They can't look in the PeopleStore database. All they can do is see unregistered talent. But they can send an email to an unregistered talent and say, hey, we'd like to represent you. We'd like to see, come on in an audition or whatever you want to do.
Well, I can tell you one thing, and I've mentioned this a number of times. For anybody who does not have representation and you do wind up booking a job through your own marketing, whether it's being on 800 Casting or doing it on your own, there is no better way to get an agent than to contact an agent after you've been booked and say, hey, look, I just booked this job. I wanted to ask if you would handle it for me. And of course, any agent is going to want to handle it for you, and it's well worth the percentage that you give up to the agent, because what you're doing is you are showing the agent that you are marketable. You're showing the agent that you can make them money, which is ultimately that's what they're looking for. And so that would be an incredible way to go about finding an agent as well, if you can actually book the job and then you can send it through an agent that's close to you.
Yeah, being marketable is very important, and having if you have a profile and you submit the profile to an agent, the agent now has a whole potpourri of what they want to see. They can see your images, they can see reels, and it's not necessary that you put up a reel. When I designed the system, I didn't want people to put up, clip after clip after clip of their castings or whatever they've been on. Clients are interested in people, for example, if they're looking for a skateboarder, and you have a skateboard reel up on and you've got skateboard listed in one of your 1,000 fields in there that you check off, it's going to pop up, and that client's going to watch you skateboarding. If you got tennis and you go out there, so the reason there's 10 video reels on there is to show your skills and abilities. Now, a lot of professional actors are on, and a lot of professional actors have very, very fine reels. What you want to make sure you do is you get a clip and you segment it out. Clients are not going to sit there and watch reels. They're not going to watch your reel for 10 minutes. You can put up a long reel, maybe it's 100 megabytes. They do it all the time, and then a client's not going to watch it. A client only has a certain amount of patience and time. They're going to watch. They want to see you start out on your face. They want to see what you look like, and they want to see you do your action, interact with somebody else, and that's it. Go on to the next one. That's what they're interested in.
Hey, Don, so I was just wondering, for people who live in smaller markets, if somebody's living, in a small town in the northwest part of the United States, or they're living in the southeast, or, any place, are there some areas where they're not going to be getting information about auditions and go-sees, or is this pretty much nationwide?
No, it's nationwide. They're gonna get the information. What they have to do is they have to look at the shoot location. and it comes out, it says shoot location, and it'll say that, most of the time it won't say an audition location because the clients themselves half the time don't know that until the last minute. But where it comes around, you want shoot location is an important thing. If you're available to travel to the shoot location, if you can get in your car and you can drive a physical distance, let's say 100 miles or whatever it is, then that's a viable casting. And you probably want to submit to that, because don't forget, a lot of these castings are literally pulled right off the internet, because we have the ability right now to do online casting, just like we're doing an online podcast right now. Exact same thing can be done with 800 casting. All this information can be seen, the clients can see it, and they may just turn around and book you right off the line. The last job, as a matter of fact, the very last job that Barbara did was they wanted some. She just walked into the room. Barbara, what was that job that they did over there? You did in Tennessee, someplace for Nashville for Spanish-speaking radio people. Clients never did a callback. Clients did anything. They watched these people perform on job. They booked them on the internet, and that was it. They went over. The guy went over. That was it.
That's incredible.
Got a bunch of bucks.
Hey, Don, I know that you also are in the middle of doing this casting. I really appreciate you taking the time out to share this information with us. And once again, for anybody who's really interested in trying to market themselves, it's an unbelievably reasonable fee of $39.95 for the year. Just go to 800casting.com and you can read more about it. Something else I can also mention is that the customer service is also incredible. So if you do have questions, just send a question in and you will be contacted very quickly. So anyhow, Don, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and I look forward to talking with you real soon.
Thanks, Aaron. Stay warm. Okay.
Hey, I'm Aaron Marcus. We're back again, and we have a great guest. His name is Garrett O. Thomas. His company is Garrett O. Public. And Garrett does a lot of different things. He's a publicist. He also does PR work. So first of all, welcome, Garrett. And I wanted to ask if you could explain to us, I know there are a lot of similarities. There are also some differences between a publicist and also a person doing PR work for actors and models and entertainers.
So yeah, you're right, Aaron. So between the PR firms and a publicist, pretty much they are very similar. You are so focused on the artist or the model and wanting to help them achieve their press goals, getting noticed, getting into any type of media they can. When it comes to publicists, though, I feel like there is a much stronger focus on the model or actress and trying to get them to the next level. With a PR firm, you have a larger roster usually, which kind of dilutes the amount of work or the amount of focus on that particular brand or artist.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to ask. So let's use me as an example. Mm-hmm. I'm an actor. I'm a commercial model. I'm a author. I do lectures, and my goal is I need to get more notice. I need to get in the public's eye more. So I contact you, and I'm assuming, and I just wanted to kind of walk through the process so people could really see what you can offer people. Mm-hmm. So we'd sit down, and what kind of questions would you be asking a potential new client?
I like it to be very organic, so I like to understand the type of person they are, because based on a personality, you can really use that toward getting a certain niche or focusing on a certain demographic. So let's say you're trying to be, you're trying to book more work, or you're trying to focus on television or a certain part of entertainment. And what I would do would be to dissect exactly where your career has been heading toward, what you've currently accomplished, and figuring out what the next steps are. We've had all different types of, we have all different types of actors, whether it's reality show, comedy, drama. It's really fun because you get to really break down their campaign into 3 parts. Typically, I start with the buzz. We start getting into just blogs, anything that's a lot more accessible, just to feel out, to see if people comment, how people react. And then from that, we utilize a lot more connections to try to get placement in magazines, gossip sites, anything to build sort of a conversation or story between the public and the artist that we're working with.
Okay, so let's say, once again, so I'm coming into your office, we're sitting down, and so it sounds like a lot of what takes place, it's not even necessarily, my resume. It sounds like a lot of it is how you view me as a person, how you really see me and get a good sense of what I'm like, and that will help determine, how you go about promoting me and getting more recognition. So if I said to you, okay, so I've done TV shows, I've done movies, done independent films, done a lot of radio spots and TV commercials, I want to start doing more feature films. That's really what I want to do. So are there some like specific things that you would be asking me, or like what kind of things would be running through your head if an actor comes to you and says, hey, I want to start doing more features, I want to get bigger roles, I want more people to take notice of me. Yeah. What kind of things would you actually be thinking of?
Well, Aaron, immediately what I would think of would be who is, whether the actor has an agent, a manager, anyone sort of above them that is handling trying to get them more work, because as a publicist, we like to work with not just the actor, but as the top management as well, just because they're the ones who are doing the networking between, whether it's with directors, with casting directors, all types of people. As a publicist, we're more of like an aid to help out. For instance, we had an actress who was on a Comedy Central show, and her role was so minor. But due to the fact that we were getting her press constantly, the writers had actually emailed us letting us know that they were going to continue keeping her as long as we were hitting all these press outlets, just because she was plugging in the show all the time. So when it comes to going back to your question about trying to get into features, we can try to accentuate certain parts. So if you're an action star trying to be in action films, we would try pitching maybe pictures of you working out on a beach or something, or trying to figure out ways to show off the type of characteristics that a director may want in you for their film.
And so it sounds, and this is interesting, so it sounds like you really become an integral part of the team. It sounds like you will have very close connections with the talent's agent, if the talent has a manager. So you actually will be in touch with those people as well. And do you let them know, like, for instance, hey, just want to, would you call the agent or email the agent or manager and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know there's going to be this great article in this particular publication for this talent. Just want to give you a heads up on it, and maybe that will be helpful when you are pitching, the client for a film for a new casting director.
Absolutely. It really is a really interesting sort of team that you create when you're as a publicist. Going back though, I don't just work with just managers or agents. A lot of times we have the talent as well. I feel like when I'm working with the agents, or if I call them, same as managers, we're trying to get a certain like you had just mentioned, trying to say like, hey, we got this story, it runs next week. Let's use this when you're trying to pitch the talent to this casting director. A lot of times, these directors, for their production companies or any type of person, if they see that there's press being built already, it's a lot easier to commit to talent because especially talent that's hasn't done so many roles yet, just because it helps solidify the fact that they at least have their own team working with them, getting them work, getting them in the news, getting that will cross promote with their film if they were to.
And something you were just mentioning that just kind of jumped out at me, and I never really thought about it in these terms, but it almost seems like, and I think the woman that you were talking about is a perfect example. Somebody who has a small part, and I'm not diminishing a small part,
No.
on a show, because for those of you who've never had the opportunity to audition for things, having one word on a television show is really difficult to get. You have no idea how many people have been submitted, how many people have auditioned, how many people have gone to callbacks and don't get it. So having anything on a show or a feature film is an incredible accomplishment. But one of the things that I'm sure that producers are thinking about constantly is, how do we get this show known to more people? And so if you do have an actor on the show or on a project, and they have this ability, through hiring a publicist, hiring a PR firm, to really get more recognition out there, that's got to be incredible for the show, which means, of course, they're going to want to keep this person on the show. Of course, they're going to want to incorporate that person more strongly into the show because it's beneficial for the show. So that's a really interesting way of going about, thinking of some of the other advantages of hiring, somebody like you. And I guess, the other part too is, do you ever get involved in the thinking process of whether an actor or a model should take on a certain project? I mean, have you ever sat down with an actor and said, I know your manager, your agent, they're kind of talking about this possible job for you. Honestly, I think it's going to be a really bad decision to take this job. And it could be for a variety of reasons. Is that ever a conversation that a publicist or a PR person would have, or is that really out of your jurisdiction?
Eric, that's actually a good question, and it comes up a lot. A lot of times when there is a new project coming up, the talent, when I speak to them, they are very wary already about whether to take it or not. I like to look at it for the long term. I like to see, if the director's had what his track record's been. Is it on a network? Is it a web series? Is it, anything, any kind of characteristic I can analyze, because I like that, and it helps me figure out, well, if they commit to this particular project, that means that this is a whole new niche or a new demographic that we're going to have to appeal toward, or going to have to, change my whole media list. We're going to try to get interviews with this company that focuses on, this outlet that focuses mostly on comedy, as opposed to the previous outlets that we've created a reputation and a relationship with. A lot of times also, I like to see if the talent's comfortable, because in the end, as a publicist, if you watch someone interview your client about a certain project and they're really kind of, it's just money to them as opposed to something they truly feel like they belong to, it comes across in the way they talk about it just naturally. It's weird, and it's something you try to prepare the client or the talent for, to watch out how they describe a show. But yeah, in the end, it's just better if the talent's happier, because the agents and managers are trying to just get money out of it, and you need to make sure that everyone's comfortable while moving forward.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, when one of your clients is going to go on a talk show, and they're going to be promoting television show or a feature or something like that, are you the one that sits down with them ahead of time and does practice sessions, or says, hey, look, here's some things that are probably going to be asked. This is how you should handle it. These are some of the bullet points that it's really important for you to get across. Is that something that you do with clients as well?
It is. I definitely like to talk to them and prep them about what to talk about, how to pitch, or how to talk about a project without sounding too advertising, I guess. A lot of times when we're talking about, what to say or how to say certain things, the producers of the show actually are, there's a relationship you have with them. They're not going to try to sideline your client, especially if you've created a good reputation. You give them a little, things that are kind of exclusive. It helps them not sucker punch you in the face. So a lot of times we do prep. It takes, we have people that I hire actually separately that are better at speaking, and they're the ones who teach my client how to talk and exactly as I said, how to plug in new projects.
I mean, are there, and I realize that, it sounds like there might be other people in your organization that do more of that specific work, but, are there any just like general things that you can share with people of things like, you don't want to show up drunk. That's generally not a good way to go into an interview on the Tonight Show. You don't want to be mad, bad mouthing the director or the other actors that you worked with. I mean, typically those aren't things you really want to do during an interview. But are there any, even like little tidbits that you could share with somebody that you think would really help center and prepare somebody prior to going into an interview?
Yeah, there's a lot actually. I typically always accentuate not to ramble too much. Keep the focus of the conversation going. I feel like it's so easy, especially for us people who are creative, to keep talking and talking, and like you kind of get these different thoughts and you want to, talk about them, and it's one of those things, if you don't have a consistent idea of the time, or the subject matter you're talking about, it just ends up being, completely
A monologue.
Exactly, which had happened actually just a few weeks ago at a Star Magazine party there. One of the clients was talking, and we didn't get to put in any plug. Like I was like, come on, let's say something, like trying to get her to say something, but it just ended up going right through. She was, once they asked her about dress, then it just never ended. So I would say, one, don't ramble. Two is definitely keep focus on the conversation. Three would be, just basic things like maintain eye contact. Watch your ums, which I need to do that. But yeah, just watch the way you speak. The other thing, and the last thing I'd say, it's really important, is just make sure that you plug in whatever you're working on, even if it's small, just as long as you have some sort of project to just throw out there, whether it's something you're working with someone else on, it just at least adds something for a viewer or an audience to research you, or if they want to learn more about you, if you're captivating enough.
Now, I've always wanted to ask a publicist and a PR person this question, and I'm finally getting the opportunity. So, is there anything such as bad publicity, or is all publicity good?
It's, I get that a lot. I've always kind of had the idea that all publicity is good, and I still agree with that to a certain extent. I feel as long as if something bad happens, let's say something's leaked, you know, if there's not enough of a foundation for that actual talent, already built, it's easy for people just to write that person off. I mean, anything, whether it's, a sex tape or racism, anything that's sort of taboo is just going to be, there's no real way to spin it unless you have, I mean, most publicists, if you have a conscience, you know what I mean? You don't want to commit to something like that. But just kind of playing around with the idea, publicity can really damage you. And I think especially now in a world where social media and everything is so easily accessible, and even celebrities, you can tweet at them, and it's almost like they're their own entity or brand. Once you damage something like that, it really can affect you long term and lower what people want to learn about you or purchase from you.
One thing that does seem to hold true, and I don't know if you all follow the same philosophy, but it seems like people generally, I find, are pretty forgiving if you are honest. You own up to whatever you did, and you're just really straight with people. I'm not saying that still won't hurt your career, but it does seem like when you do apologize and you acknowledge it, it seems like, I don't know, I find that people can get over that quicker than people who just deny, and then the public finds out they really had been lying all along. And so is that, some kind of advice that you ever given to clients that have done, things that you wish they hadn't?
Yes, definitely. There are times where if we have a client who's currently battling some sort of relationship issues with their ex, and there's a lot of closets being opened up in both sides, it really does affect the person. You have to really kind of get an idea as to how the public is reacting to it, because if there is something about, let's say, drug use, or maybe there's a recording of someone saying something that was really rude, or, like I said before, racist, or whatever it is, you have to really listen to how the media is reacting to it, because if you just go on and you start apologizing for things, people are going to be like, oh, I didn't even know they did that, or I didn't know. You kind of have to feel out what's going on. I think a lot of times when, like you had said, if there's a celebrity moving on with their life after, they've been denying something, denying it, and it comes to light that it was actually, they were lying the whole time. It really, with a good team behind them, they can sort of write off any public investigation into that issue. But a lot of times it really does come to light. It really does affect their branding. And like you had said before, if you're just honest, it can really diminish all that bad PR, because people want to forgive, especially if you've been a likable celebrity or a likable brand this whole time.
Yeah. And so, Garrett, when would you recommend, actor or model, any kind of talent, when would be the right time for them to begin looking for a publicist or a PR person?
Based on the general pricing with all types of publicists, I would say the best thing to do is kind of focus on your basic branding before you consult with a publicist. I feel like if you already have your social media set up, you have a website, you have, I don't know, a YouTube channel, if you're doing, your bulk of your stuff is online. I would say just building that first and getting the viewership, and building that would make getting a publicist later more efficient, because with the publicity, it's kind of like like adding steroids to your branding already. You're just kind of adding on to what you can do yourself, and we're the ones who are kind of pushing you toward a certain direction, getting you higher press outlets, and just getting your name out there. So as long as you have the basics, that saves time, that saves you having to pay a retainer for the month, that could have been done way before. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, so basically have everything in order first so that once publicity starts happening, you've got a solid foundation.
Exactly.
Opposed to doing it the other way around. And just, and I certainly, I'm not asking for a specific number because I'm sure people have no idea. And I'm sure these numbers range tremendously. Typically,
Yeah.
to hire a publicist or or a PR person, is it a monthly fee? Is it an hourly fee? Do people ever come to you and say, "Hey, I'll tell you what. Like I know I probably can't afford your fees. Can we work out a percentage deal of any acting jobs that I get? I'm going to give you a 5% commission." Or how exactly does that work, and what kind of range of monies are could people expect to pay?
Aaron, it's crazy. I've seen, prices go from 500 a month to 3,000 a month. 3,000 is quite high. Regarding the percentage, it works sometimes. I've seen that happen. I've actually haven't done it, only because when it comes to PR, it's so hard to just say, oh yeah, well, by getting this, this placement in this newspaper that brought in such and such income to your client. Whereas with managers booking or agents booking a deal, you have that money, there it is. The job's getting this, you got this amount, and everyone's happy. So when it comes to the percentage style, it's not very feasible. Everything else typically is a monthly. And like I do it monthly just because I like the talent to feel comfortable. I want them to know, hey, I'm not going to charge anyone per hour. I feel like it takes time for things to, get eaten up by the press. You have to really build it up. And usually by the second month is when things really start booming. Nothing happens immediately, except for small, blogs or this and that. You just need to get people started and start revving the PR engines to get the talent out there more.
So generally, you're looking at it probably would take a minimum of 2 months before somebody really sees anything happening because
The results, correct.
yeah, because it takes time for you to interview the person, to really get a good sense, to start sending out feelers, trying to figure out, where they should be, sent to. And okay, well, that's great. And I know you've got to run out in a second. The very last question I wanted to ask is, do you have any suggestions for actors and models who are, trying to use social media, as a way of building up their presence? What ways would you recommend that talent use the Facebook and LinkedIn and any other kind of social media tool? Any suggestions on what would be a good way to actually use them to help them get work and notoriety and noticed by industry professionals?
I've actually seen it with some of our clients where they actually will use LinkedIn to work or to connect with, a casting director or somebody. It hasn't been the most successful, but I have seen it happen before where they've at least been able to communicate or get an insider's perspective on, upcoming auditions. I think when it comes to social media, such as Twitter or Facebook, I think it's important to really, especially with Twitter, is to follow casting directors, people in the industry, and stay active with the materials that they're tweeting themselves. There's a lot of tips and tricks that people put out there, and showing that you're actively listening or you're applying it really gives, I believe, gives you, allows them to notice you. And I think that also when it comes to Twitter, using hashtags, using all the, at symbols towards certain, whether it's a project, having something consistent is what's going to help push the most out there. So if you have a set hashtag, really push that, and don't try to make up different different hashtags or different concepts when you're trying to really push with another entity, especially when you can cross promote like we had talked about before with another project. And that's how I would use social media to build my brand.
So basically, you want to do things on a regular basis. You want to put out good content, not, hey, I'm going to go to the store and buy baked beans today. Have
Exactly.
something that's going to be, industry related, maybe asking good questions to some of the industry professionals that you are following. And, and once again, it seems like you have to do it on a consistent basis and let people know that you are around. It seems like those are really helpful ways to get your name out there, and then also, I guess, certainly having a decent website, or at least a site that people can go to once they know you, to actually see more of your work.
Exactly, and
Well,
the social media brings it to you.
yeah, it's incredible. Hey, Garrett, I know you've got to take off. I just want to make sure everybody should be checking out. It's GarrettOPublic.com. For public relations, and really thank you so much. In the next segment, I'm going to be talking very specifically, giving you specific steps of how to go about marketing yourself. So, Garrett, thank you again, and look forward to talking with you soon, man.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. Take care.
See ya.
Goodbye.
Okay, so here's the very last segment for the workshop today. And what I'm going to be doing is sharing with you this PowerPoint presentation, and it's the best way for actors and models to market themselves. And so sit back. You can take a lot of notes while you're doing this. If you do have any questions at the end, once again, you can just hit the little button that will raise your hand, and then Joel will bring the question in for us. So let's get started here, and let me start here. So when you were talking about marketing yourself, and this holds true whether you were just getting started or if you've been in the business for a while, let's first go over the materials that you need. So the very beginning, you've got to have a great headshot. You've got to have a great resume. And when I say great resume, I'm not talking about it's got to be powerful. It has to show starring roles in, tons of feature films and television shows. That's not what I'm talking about. And you'll learn more about it as I go into it. Well, anyhow, I'll save a lot of the talk about resumes when I get to that page. If you're interested in doing commercial modeling work, which most actors are, you've got to put together strong commercial photos. You have to eventually put together a great composite sheet. And I can tell you that, in these time periods where so much is being done electronically, just like Don was saying, and he's 100% correct, you do not need as many composite sheets as you used to, just like you don't need as many headshots as you used to. Like, for instance, years ago, I used to print anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 headshots at a time, because every agent, and I worked with lots of agents in different markets, every agent wanted 25, 30, 40, sometimes even more headshots and comp cards for their files. Today, everything is just being sent out via JPEGs, or it's up on websites, and so you still need them. Sometimes I've heard some people say, well, you don't even need headshots, you don't need comp cards anymore. That's not true, because sometimes, not all the time, but most of the time when you go to an audition, people want a headshot to hold, keep. They want to flip it over, look over your resume. And the same thing holds true with going on a GOSI, which is the audition for models. People want to see a composite sheet. Now, like I said, sometimes you don't, but you always want to have them. And you never know, who you're going to run into. You might want to hand, your information to. You also, and this is something that a lot of people really don't spend much time thinking about or producing, but it's really, really, really helpful. Business cards. You definitely want a business card. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. And also, you need a great cover letter so that once you have these materials and you are beginning to market yourself, you need to be able to say exactly what needs to be said in this letter. And just on a general note, look, sometimes you will be submitting information electronically. Some agents only, they ask for you to submit things, through their website with JPEGs. I can also tell you, I personally find it more effective when you actually send in a hard copy of your materials, and I'll talk more about that later. So the very first thing is a headshot. And look, this is not a headshot workshop. I have done headshot workshops, and you can go to howtomodel.com and go to the store page, and you can purchase a workshop that was done, which is really, actually, it's phenomenal. But still, let me just give you some general information here, in case you're going through the process. So the most important part of the headshot is you have got to figure out who you are, how you are going to be cast, what is your type. Don't let your emotions get in the way. Don't let your fantasies get in the way. Look, I'd love to fantasize that I'm this great-looking guy, and I'm going to be doing all these ads. I'm going to get cast as this great-looking guy with this beautiful woman in my arms, and we're going to be doing an ad for, Porsche cars or Rolex watches, and I'm wearing the tuxedo. And look, that's pretty much fantasy stuff for me. I'm going to be getting cast most of the time, and there are some exceptions to the rule, but typically, I'm the older dad, I'm the teacher, I'm the doctor, I'm the lawyer, I fix your computers, I might be the politician. I know that those are the areas that I'm going to get cast in. And so the key thing is I've got to be able to create a photo that shows that kind of attitude, that puts me into that category. So when you look in my eyes in that headshot, you see all those things. For a commercial headshot, you want to present yourself as somebody that people like, somebody who's friendly, somebody who's approachable, somebody with great energy. That's what you're looking for. So you want to read a lot about how to create these things. And I don't want to sit here and spend much time plugging How to Become a Successful Commercial Model, which is the book that I wrote that you can read about and you can order on my website, howtomodel.com. But I have a whole chapter that just will walk you through the process, that will tell you very specifically how to create the headshot. Because the more information you have going into the headshot session, the greater the chances are that you are going to create a great headshot. There are some phenomenal headshot photographers that can hold your hand, walk you through the process, give you everything that you need, and you will walk out with an incredibly effective headshot. A lot of times you will find that you will be shooting with a technically great shooter, but not necessarily somebody who completely understands headshots. I have found, this is just from my experience, that great headshot photographers, people who only do headshots, you will find typically in major markets. I find that in smaller markets, you still might find great headshot photographers, don't get me wrong, but these are people who do many other things as well. So that's why the more knowledge you have, the more you have practiced, the more prepared you are, the greater the chances are that even if that person hasn't done a tremendous amount of headshots, you're going to be able to teach the photographer how to do it. Not from a technical point of view, but you will know how to get the shot that you need. And actually, a word that I said before, which is really important, it's not whether it's a beautiful shot of you, what shot will sell you the best. That's what it's all about. These are not glamour shots. It's what headshot will put you into the right categories and be most effective, get you the audition. Okay, so the other thing you want to do with headshots is you want to practice prior to your session. You want to be able to get the right look on the spot. And you can do this from home. Try it where you know what kind of emotions you need, you know what you're trying to project, you know what kind of image you're trying to show. And then what you can do is just get anybody with a cell phone that has a camera on it, with a throwaway camera, a digital camera, it doesn't make any difference, and practice and see if you are able to get the looks that you're trying to achieve. And if you can, you've got it. And now it's just a matter of understanding the location of the shot. Are you going to be shooting in a studio or are you going outside? In either case, just make sure the background is not busy, that you stand out. You do not have any wardrobe that is going to grab people's attention. Make sure that people, no pun intended, focus on you. Focus on your face. And one other thing to keep in mind, especially in today's time period, you've got to be thinking this headshot is probably going to be used as a JPEG on a computer. It's going to be seen on a monitor. So if you do a headshot that is a full body, 3/4 body headshot where they're seeing a lot of body, that would concern me a little bit, because when other people's faces are being seen on the monitor, and if it's a nice tight shot, from the chest up, their face is going to jump out. If you have a full body shot, your face is small and they're not going to be able to see it as well. So keep that in mind when you're setting up the shot. If you can crop it properly so that you do a half body shot that you can, print out as a hard copy, but if it can be cropped properly so that it can still be seen well on the monitor, that would be fine. But you just want to make sure you're not cropping up body parts and and things like that. There are many ways of finding photographers in your area, and I just wanted to give you one quick example. If you go to asmp.org, and I have it right up here on the screen for you, at the American Society of Media Photographers, I know there are over 5,000 members. Just go to their websites, look them up, find out if there are any photographers in your particular area, see if they do the kinds of shoots that you're interested in. Some of these members do very different things. It could be architectural photography, could be CEO reports. Those people you're not all that interested in. You want to find people who do commercial photography or headshots. Okay, resume is the next part. Now, here is the most important part to a resume. You have got to be honest. And I know that seems like a silly thing. Well, of course, who's not going to be honest in a resume? Let me tell you, there are a lot of people who put things on their resume that simply aren't true, but their thought is, I really don't have that much to say on a resume. I'll just like throw in, I don't know, some play, that was done in the area. Look, number one, it's not good for your business to be lying. I just don't think it's a good way to run your business. But aside from the morality part of it, it also could really hurt you from strictly a business point of view. And I have heard of this happening. Look, chances are people might not know whether you really did that play or not, but I have spoken to, actually there's one particular time, it was a casting director. And to make a very, very long story short, she knew this person lied because her husband happened to direct this play that this person said that they were in. And the person was told to leave. They would never get a chance to read for her again. This is for a feature film. So be honest with your resume. Something else that I do, as you can see here in the slide, I like having a headshot in the upper right-hand corner. That way, they look at the headshot, they flip it over, and they can still see me. This happens to be a different headshot than what's on the front, but that's okay. And if it's the same headshot, if you only have one, put that on there as well. At least that way they can continue to see your face as they're looking at your resume. Make sure your contact information is there. If you are working with an agent, they're going to want all of their contact information. One other little suggestion: if you are putting together a resume, you do not have any agency representation, or you are trying to market yourself in another area and you don't have an agent there, what some people do just for safety purposes, they get a Google Voice number. And if you go to google.com/voice, you can actually get this free, which is really amazing. So it's google.com/voice. You fill out some information, put in your zip code, and you will get a list of a number of phone numbers. You can pick one, and that becomes your phone number. And that way, if you want to put that on your resume or on your composite sheet as well as your contact information, you are not giving out your personal information, which in today's time period could be very helpful because you don't know who's getting their hands on your headshot and resume or com card. Look, you might go to a very legitimate casting. You drop off your headshot and resume, they're done with it, they throw it away at the end of the day when the project is done, and who knows who's going to be rummaging through the casting director's trash. And all of a sudden they look at a headshot and they go, oh, well, she's pretty, and then they flip it over. Oh, here's her phone number. So if you're interested, you can do this. And a couple things that's also really cool when you do it is that you choose this Google Voice number, and then you set it up so that whenever somebody calls that number, it gets forwarded to whether it's your cell phone or home phone number, whatever number you want to forward it to. And every time they use that number, you will know that it's a business call coming into your cell phone. It will alert you that way. And if they leave a message, and you don't pick it up, they leave a voice message, it comes up in a text format. So you can actually read the message. It's really great, and it's a good safety precaution as well. Okay, so you're going to have your statistics in there, and basically, even if you haven't done very much in the industry, that's okay. People understand you have to start someplace. And once again, this isn't a resume workshop. I've done those as well, which you can read about on howtomodel.com by going to the store page. But I just want to give you some general information. One of the key things you want to have, which will help you with marketing as well. When you look at the bottom of this resume, you'll see there are special skills. And just like when Don was talking before about, maybe having a video of you, skateboarding or rollerblading or doing an athletic sport, maybe it's horseback riding, whatever it is, put that on your resume. If it's something that you can comfortably do, something that you are qualified to do, you don't have to be a professional. You have to be adequate at doing these things so that if you are asked, hey, can you ride a horse? I'm not saying that you have to be a jockey and you have to have, ridden in the Kentucky Derby or be a professional, but you're competent. And yes, you can get on a horse, you know how to ride the horse, you're very comfortable there. You can play football, you've got a good arm, you know how to throw the ball, you're a good receiver, whatever it is. Make sure that you're competent and put that down because that can help you tremendously when it comes to casting, which will also help you with your marketing process. Matter of fact, it could even be something that's not even related to acting or modeling. There was somebody that I met who actually got a certificate to be a bartender when they lived in Australia. They're a U.S. citizen. They happen to be living abroad for a period of time. And she got this certificate that allowed her to bartend. Well, putting down there that she is a bartender and has a certificate, that could be really helpful. There are a lot of projects where she would be cast and she's got the right look for it as a bartender. So even if it's not directly connected to acting or modeling, put it on there because it might be very helpful to you. Okay, so creating a very strong commercial photo, which will also give you a com card. Once again, there's a whole workshop just on this, but from a marketing point of view, here's what you need to have to make yourself have a powerful package of the materials that you need to market yourself. Make sure that your photos look like ads, and you can learn very quickly how to do this. Look, if you're just getting started and you did your first photo session, and they're pretty much posed shots of you just standing there smiling, looking into the lens of the camera, that's okay. Look, you've got to start somewhere, and that's fine. But at some point, you want to start changing that a little bit. You want to show a variety of expressions and emotions in your shots. And that way people can see that you have the ability to take direction, that you can, if you're doing a pharmaceutical ad and you are a person who has a horrible headache, and you can actually indicate that in your facial and body expression. That's really important. So, don't think that you only have to have beautiful shots of you or shots where you look really handsome. Maybe having a shot where you look sick, you feel bad, you're in pain, that can be really helpful, because then they can see that you have a wide range of looks and that you can portray different kinds of emotions and expressions. That just opens up the door for many, many more shots and many, many more ads. Okay, as far as business cards go, I just wanted to show you what my business card looks like. Look, in person it looks a lot better than what I scanned here, but at least you'll be able to see it. I use two sides of a business card. I'm thinking I want to use as much space as I possibly can. Probably on my next card, I might cut out some of the information, make the text a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit easier to read. Matter of fact, I will definitely do that. But I like to utilize both sides. It's kind of like, if there's a billboard, well, if you can, it'd be nice if they could have a billboard where you can use up both sides so people can see you coming in, going. So for my particular business card, it's split up into two areas. One deals with my acting work, and I have my headshot on there, and that way I can hand in my card. People can, see my headshot. I also have information about modeling, about my book, and about my workshop. And so that way I can use the card for that purpose as well. And look, and I don't get any kind of money for this, being upfront about it. The printer that I've used for my last, I think, 3 business cards, it's been UPrinting. And here's the website. They've done a great job for me, and that's why, once again, they have no idea that I'm promoting their business. I probably should be getting paid for it, but I'm not. I just like their work. They're incredibly reasonable, and I think the cards look great. The reason why it's really important, and a lot of actors and models don't even consider a business card, because they figure, oh, I've got a headshot, got a composite sheet, why? You'd be amazed. You might be at your child's, softball game or soccer game, and you're talking with somebody, whose kid is also playing, and you ask them, hey, so what do you do? Oh, I work for an advertising agency. Oh, really? Really? And what kind of things do you do? Well, we do commercials, we do radio spots, we do, commercial modeling ads. Well, you're probably not going to be walking around with a stack of headshots and composite sheets with you, but certainly you can have a business card. You could be at the grocery store, you can be on an airplane, you could be anywhere, you could be hiking, in Mount McKinley, who knows where you're going to be, and you happen to run into somebody. Maybe if you're hiking, you might not want to be thinking business, but you just never know. And it can be incredibly helpful to you to be able to hand the card over to somebody. And you should always be asking for somebody else's card as well, so that even if you hand them, your card, this is a way for you to stay in touch with them. So without a doubt, you want a photo on there. You want people to be able to see you, have your contact information very clear. Make sure that the font size, that the text is very easily readable. Typically I use Arial. Sometimes I use Times New Roman for the font style. But having a business card is a great way to help market yourself. Okay, creating a strong cover letter. One of the things you're going to be doing, and this is if you are submitting yourself to ad agencies for possible work, could be a casting director, it could be a producer, could be an agent, maybe it's a manager. Whoever it's going to go to, make sure you have your headshot on the very top of this letter, have your contact information underneath it, so they see you and they know how to get a hold of you very easily. The other thing is, make sure you make it very clear in your cover letter, and by the way, it's very short, might be a couple very, very short paragraphs, 6 sentences. I mean, you don't want to go into a long, history of how old you were when you could start riding a two-wheeler, when your baby teeth completely fell out, what your vision is. You really are 20/20. You can see great. look, you want to make this thing really short, sweet, to the point. And if you haven't done very much in this industry, I would put in there, instead of saying, look, I'm just getting started, I haven't done anything, I'd love to talk with you about having you represent me. Once again, you're marketing. You are a salesperson here. And a much better way of pitching yourself, instead of putting yourself down and saying you haven't done anything, look, certainly you're not going to lie. You don't want to say, oh, I've done 1,000 TV commercials, you haven't done anything. What you can say is, look, I'm a fresh face in this market, and I'd like to be considered to be submitted for TV commercials, industrial and training films, feature films, television shows, and commercial modeling work. Whatever it is, let them know very clearly what areas you're interested in working in. Once again, your contact information is in there, and then you send it off, along with your headshot, along with your composite sheet, depending on what you would like to be doing. And by the way, if you are interested, on page 47 of my book, I've got a perfect example of a cover letter, which you are free to borrow, copy, change, but it's a good template for you to use. Okay, so more information about marketing yourself. So now you've got all the materials in place, and now you are ready to start trying to submit yourself. So where do you go? How do you find out about projects? So, as we talked about earlier, there are companies like 800 Casting that can be very helpful to you. Also, there are listservs. These are places, and I find, so far, everyone that I found is absolutely free. One of the bonuses that you got for attending this workshop is I have a great list of listservs. And if you're living in an area that you don't see the listserv for your particular area that I sent you, I'm sure you can do a Google search and you can find some listservs in your areas. But basically what you'll find is you sign up and you will start getting emails, sometimes multiple times a day, about various projects. And look, you do have to weed through them. Some of them are not going to be appropriate for you depending on what the breakdowns are, depending on what they're looking for. Maybe it's the project that you really don't want to be associated with. Maybe it's too far away from you to actually work on. If you feel like it's going to be taking up too much time and you simply can't do it because you have a full-time job or you're a full-time student. Anyhow, there are a lot of factors involved, but finding listservs is a great way. There are other listings, and I know this might have been part of some of the information that I sent you, but just to make sure you have it, there's Mandy.com. On my website, howtomodel.com, if I hear about an audition or a go-see or a job, I'll post it there and I'll share it with other people. To me, it's just a nice way of running my business. I know some people don't like sharing information, and I understand it. They're concerned about, the competitive part of it. If I give you information about an audition and you show up and I show up, well, you might not, you might book it and then I won't get it. And I understand it. It's just not how I do things. And I truly believe that we don't have competition in this world. I really don't think that. And I'm not saying that because I think I'm so great. Look, I'm good at what I do. I know the things that I'm good at. And look, there are a lot of people who can do the job. And if they think that you are better for this particular role than I am, then you're going to book it, and that's great. And if they think that I'm the best person for it, then I'll book it, and that's fine too. But, it's nice when you can share information with other people. And to me, it seems like it's a nice way to run your business. The one thing I did want to mention about Craigslist, which I do have here, and you can click on the gigs link part of it. And I know people who've had some real success with finding radio spots, TV commercials, films, and things like that. And sometimes people will post it there because they don't have the money to do a regular casting. They can't hire a casting director. Maybe it's a quick turnaround. There are a lot of reasons why they might post it there. One thing I just want to mention, and I'm throwing out this disclaimer and I'm making it very, 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 very clear. You've got to be careful. It's not going through an agent, through a legitimate casting director, who's been around for a million years. You don't necessarily know who these people are, and you have to take precautions. So if you are going through, a company like, Craigslist, I'm not saying anything negative about them. I mean, I think they do a great service, but you have to be careful when it's, a photographer you know nothing about, it's a director, a writer that you know nothing about. So some of the things that you can do to make sure that you are safe and that this is a legitimate job. If it's a photographer, go to their website. Make sure you're seeing photographs in there that are right, that make sense to you, that you're comfortable with, and also bring somebody with you. Preferably somebody big, somebody who can help you if you run into a problem. Make sure people have information as to where you're going, what time, check in with people. And I know, and I'm not trying to scare people off, but really in today's time period, you have to be very careful with that. For advertising agencies. So the reason why you want to market yourself to advertising agencies is because sometimes it's the art and the creative director who make the final decision as to which actor gets hired for the TV commercial, for the radio spot. If it's a modeling job, maybe it's the commercial model. The creative director is the person who comes up with the concept for the ad campaign. The art director takes that idea, puts it on paper, they create, it's called a layout, and that's what the client sees to make sure that they like these ideas. And so what you can do is you can actually send in a headshot and or comp card with a good cover letter and send it in to the art and creative directors at the advertising agencies. And once again, keep me in mind. You can just say this in the cover letter, for future projects. Now, they might, look at it, throw it all away, which is fine, because your goal is to have them look at your photos. And as long as they look at it, which why wouldn't they? They'll look at it and maybe they'll hold on to it. Maybe they'll just throw it in the trash can. They will have seen you. Maybe they're working on a project that you're right for. They can contact you or go through your agent if you have your agent's information on the cover letter. Or maybe they might see you in 2 months from now at a casting. And they might go, boy, that person looks familiar. I must have seen them in some project. No, actually, you look familiar because they just threw your headshot and comp card away a couple months ago. In either case, it's always helpful to you. So how do you find ad agencies? You can go to the Chamber of Commerce in your particular area and see if you can get a listing there. Here are some other associations that you can check out and see if they have any of the ad agencies in your particular area. And let me just tell you, if there's an ad agency that is not a member of, one of them is AAAA.org, the other is the American Ad Agencies. It doesn't mean they're not a great ad agency. That just means they're not a part of these associations. So check them out. I'm sure you can do searches online as well. I also have one for Canada because I do know that sometimes we have people from Canada coming to the workshop, and I want to share that with them as well. And make sure you get the specific names when you go to their website of the art and creative director. If it means a phone call to get their names, make sure you get the spelling. Don't send something in, dear art director. Put it, address it to a specific person. But anyhow, ad agencies is a great way. Once again, another way to market yourself. Here are some websites and companies that you can use. There's things like Actors Access, there's 800 Casting, there's Casting Networks, Dragonhook Connects. It's more, for Brian Dragonhook, it's more of a mid-Atlantic listing. Once again, there's howtomodel.com, but you also, you got a number of these in the bonus materials, but these are really good places to go to. Here's something that a lot of people don't necessarily think of. Film commissions, and this is a great website. This is a listing of film commissions throughout the United States. And so here's a good example. I'm going to be doing an in-person workshop in Montana soon. And so as a way of helping to promote the workshop, I went to the Film Commission. And they posted information about the workshop because they want their actors to be more knowledgeable and get training, and so and they were wonderful. And what you can do is when you go to the Film Commission for your particular state, you can find out, are there projects coming to town, and if so, hopefully at that point, depending on how close they are to actually begin shooting, they should have information about who's doing the casting, even if it's just extras casting. Get that information and you can start submitting yourself. And it's a great way to find out about projects coming to your particular area. Here are some other ways of marketing yourself for jobs that you might not necessarily have thought of. Maybe it's promotional work or trade shows. And here are a couple of national companies, and they book people all across the states. And you can, check them out, see how they want you to submit yourself to them. And once again, like, it might not be what you are initially thinking of. You might be thinking, like, I just want to do, theater. I just want to do film. I just want to do TV. You might want to keep some of these other areas open because, sometimes you might do some of these jobs and you never know how they can lead you to other kinds of projects. I know people that have gotten very closely connected with certain companies at trade shows, and all of a sudden the company wants to use that talent for some of their commercial work as well. So another area that you might be thinking of, or maybe you're not thinking of, is audiobooks. Maybe if you think that you're really good at this and you would enjoy that kind of work where you are, sitting in a booth and you are, reading the book and turning it into an audiobook, here's a really good website for that. And here's something that's just kind of out of the blue. I met an actor, he's a talented actor. He also works as a professional mascot. Some of these people actually make a lot of money, and it sounds like interesting work. And once again, it keeps you connected to the industry, and this is a company that casts and hires mascots. So anyhow, just another way of marketing and trying to get yourself out there. The other thing too is you want to meet as many industry professionals as possible. And there are a number of ways of doing it, and we talked about it, throughout the day. Here are a couple that were not mentioned, and I want to share them with you. One is, this is an incredible organization. It's a worldwide organization. It's WIFV.org, Women in Film and Video. And by the way, you don't have to be a woman to be a member of this. I'm a member, and I'm trying to remember, I think it's about $50 a year. And the thing that's really neat, and you don't have to be a member, you can still attend meetings, and at least I should say for the chapter that I'm involved with. I can't speak for the others. Then you can also just pay a small fee to attend one of their meetings. At their meetings, and the reason why it can be great, not only will they have guest speakers, which will allow you to learn more about the industry in your area, but they also have a time for networking. And once again, I can only speak for the chapter that I'm involved with. Every chapter might do things differently. But you can find a chapter in your area by going to this particular website. But during the networking session, you'll get a chance to talk to tons of other industry professionals. Might be other actors, could be models, could be producers, could be people, could be writers, people doing documentaries. Maybe it's technical people, maybe it's camera people, who knows? But anyhow, this is a great session, and that is the place where you have your business cards, where you're handing out your business cards, you're accepting business cards, you put them into a spreadsheet, you stay in touch with these people. You never know. You might be speaking to somebody who does sound, for films, for training films, and you hand them the card, you had a nice conversation, and who knows, you stay in touch with the person, and all of a sudden the person is working on a project, and the producer or the director says to the sound person, hey, you know what, there's this new part that just opened up, or we had an actor who just dropped out. By any chance, do you know anybody who could do this particular role? And all of a sudden he's got your business card. Anyhow, it's a great organization, and you should, definitely check into them. The other are meetup groups. This is a fairly new concept, and there are meetup groups for all different kinds of things. One of them is for actors, and you can go to this, actually it's an international meetup group, and find out if there is one close to you, and if not, maybe you can start one. And I think that would be a really, really cool thing to do. So that is what I wanted to talk with you about today. Joel, are there any questions at this time before we close out the day?
There's a question that came from Deetra back when John was talking. She asked a question. He was talking about mentors. So her question is, where would one find a good mentor in the modeling industry?
Okay, that's a great question. Partially because I am a mentor, and what I do is, and look, there are a lot of people that you can go to, but one of the things that I do, and if you go to howtomodel.com/coaching, you can read all about my private online coaching sessions. And what I do, and it's for both actors and models, and what I do is I set up a time, we sit down online, you will email me any photos that you have, and if you don't have any professional photos, if you haven't done any ads, you can still just send me a couple of snapshots so I get a general idea of what your type is. And what we'll do is, if it's for modeling, we will sit down and I will go over pictures, give you suggestions, share with you ways of coming up with some great ideas for new commercial shots, ways of testing out your ideas at no cost, where you can actually put together enough photos for a portfolio, for an agent's website at absolutely no cost to you. And I'm not trying to replace professional photographers, but this is a way of testing out your ideas. Also learning how to best prepare before your photo session. And we would really go into great detail about this. If you're trying to find an agent in your particular area, I can help you with that process. If you're trying to find an agent in other markets, we can discuss that as well. We can talk about the business side of the industry, how to interview a photographer. I mean, there are a lot of things that we can do. So I set aside 4 days every month just for mentoring. And so if you're interested, for anybody who's really serious about either getting started in the right way or really jumping to the next level, if you feel like you're just kind of getting stuck and you're not really getting to where you want to go, yeah, just go to howtomodel.com/coaching. You can read about it. You can sign up. We'll set up a time and a date that's good for us. And it will just save you years and years and years of guesswork. It will save you thousands of dollars of money spent unnecessarily. And not that I can guarantee you work, because nobody can do that, but what I can guarantee you is giving you your best opportunity to get, whether it's acting or modeling work. So anyhow, thanks for the question, and absolutely, I'd be more than happy to work with you.
Great.
Joel, are there any other questions that have come in?
I just want to grab one more in here. This is from Kim in Colorado. Just so we can kind of maybe close this question. How much should I expect to spend for a headshot and comp card?
Okay, that's a great question. Look, there are no like specific numbers that I can give you, because every particular market is going to be different, and it also depends on how you want to go about getting these photos done. If I was going to just give out just so you have like a ballpark idea, doing a headshot session can be anything from nothing. Once again, if you kind of follow my path, but let's say you're in a city, no matter where you are, I would say that the range for a good professional headshot will be anywhere from $200. It could be $150 to, I would say, up to about $600. And there are so many factors that go into that. If you're shooting in Nashville, it's going to be a lot different than if you're, cost-wise and shooting in LA or New York or Miami or Chicago. It also depends on, are you only doing a headshot, and you're not doing any other photos during the session? Are you hiring a makeup artist? And does that fee that the photographer is giving you, does that include a makeup artist? And by the way, you want a makeup artist there. I know that there are additional expenses for that, but it's in your best interest. So I would say to put together, I'm sorry, was the question only about headshots, or was the question about commercial photos as well?
It was headshots and comp cards, just kind of get a general sense of the pricing for those.
Okay. I would say, once again, general terms, still, I would put it into that same category, because quite often you can work with a photographer and say that you would like to do a headshot and maybe 3 other photos or 4 other photos, which would be enough pictures for a comp card, where you can have a headshot on the front, maybe you could have 3 or 4 photos on the back, and I would still put it into that price range of anywhere between $250, $600, maybe even $700. And the other thing too is, if you are going to get them reproduced, there are a number of different printers that you can go to, and those fees will vary as well. And if if you order howtomodel.com, I'm sorry, if you order How to Become a Successful Commercial Model at my website, howtomodel.com, one of the bonuses that you get there is a free directory in the industry information directory. It's one of the 2 directories you get. You will get a listing of 16 printing companies. And these are places that specialize in printing your photos and turning them into headshots and composite sheets. And you know, you can spend anywhere from $75, you know, to a couple $100, once again, depending on how many you want to get. I know you didn't ask this, but I'm just going to throw this out. When you're putting together photos, especially for the first time, or if you're not 100% sure if the shots that you took are really going to sell you well, instead of going out and spending, you know, even if it's $50 or $75 or $100 on professionally printed headshots or comp cards, what I would recommend that you do is take your photos to any local printer, you know, whether it's like a Kinko's or anything like that. Have the photos scanned at a really high level equipment, and print out a mock composite sheet or a mock headshot, where you might have just one photo on an 8x10, you know, piece of paper for your headshot. Make sure your name, contact information is on there. For a composite sheet, for a mock composite sheet, you can have a headshot on the front, on the back, have the 3 or 4 photos, and also have contact information, statistics, and things like that. And you might spend, you know, $1.50, $1.75, you know, for color reproduction like that. Use that as a way of presenting yourself to agents, and have the agents look at your photos, and if they really like the shots, then you go out and you spend, you know, the other money and have them professionally printed. If they say to you, hey, I love your look, you've got a really marketable look, but these photos just don't represent you well, then, you know, you spent $1.75 and it's a good investment. And then you have to go back and readjust and get some other shots done. So really, to start your business, you know, you really don't have to spend a tremendous amount of money, especially if you're trying to get some test shots done at no cost. But the key thing is, make sure you get the information first. And certainly, like I said, one of the ways is reading my book, How to Become a Successful Commercial Model, and it will just walk you through the entire process. And that way you know exactly what you're doing, and your startup costs will be much, much less. Let me just wind this up. Guys, this was a really fun day for me. The information that we got from the guests were just incredible. And please, why don't you go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/howtomodel, and leave a comment there. You know, let everybody know what you learned here today. If you have any additional questions, post them right there. I will be able to answer them for you. And hopefully, if there are questions, you know, about the industry, not only will I answer them, but I have a community of people who are helping each other. And basically, you can have other people answering questions for you as well. And you know, it was a great day. Can't wait to talk with you guys again soon. We will have another workshop that will be taking place in December. We will be sending out information about it. It's but anyhow, I'll send you all the details later. And I'm Aaron Marcus. This was a great day, and look forward to talking with you again soon.